What if I told you the way it has always been done is not the best way? Facing your fears will change your life. The passion behind this journey is merging two separate worlds into one with the goal of creating value and awareness for a better life.
I'd rather be sidelined trying to achieve greatness than watch greatness achieved and it only set on the sideline. Now introducing your host, Jacob Emery.
This episode is brought to you by R&R Pipeline, an infrastructure company. Our purpose? Enhancing America's infrastructure with a safety-driven, integrity-led culture that provides an environment for team members to grow and thrive. Welcome to another edition of the Iron and Infrastructure Podcast. Today, we have a legend on the show. There is no doubt that this man's infrastructure built through iron. He was a great lifting partner for years, still a good friend of mine, a Westside Barbell staple for 20-some years. Drex, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you, Jake.
Appreciate your time today. Glad I got you to get on the mics. We wanted to do this for a while. Dude, you have been a part of Westside since the early 2000s?
Yeah.
So you've seen some crazy shit happen in that time. We were just talking about, before we started recording, overcoming fear. And I don't know if you remember or not, so I want to jump right into this. It happened to me, and I was one of them guys that I'm sure Tony was cussing me out after he brought me to. We were doing a 5-rep max, 385. I was on my third rep, and the bar slipped out of my hand on that third rep because I was pushing to get the 5, and I wasn't letting the weight. I was out of control.
Sure.
And I was bringing it down too fast so I could get it in. And then when it went up, it knocked me out for a split second. Tony grabs my arms, gets my diaphragm opened up, and that hurt like hell. And I remember not knowing if I had punctured a lung or anything, and nothing but fear running through my mind. I couldn't breathe right for 6 weeks, but I cracked a few ribs, nothing punctured. And there was a defining moment, though, when I had to come back and face it. And I just remember getting under that bar and that fear running through my head. And I'm like, oh, shit.
Yeah.
3 plates. No, we're going to 4 plates. And it like stuck right there. But then I thought, what's the worst case scenario? It happens again. Everyone around me knows that it happened once. So now everyone's on high alert. They're watching better than ever. And I had never done it before, when it happened, but now it's known. So I have the legit best spotters in the world spotting me. And for that reason alone, my fear went away.
Sure.
How many situations have you had that fear's in your head? Ladies and gentlemen, before he goes, he is also a 700 plus pound bencher and has done that every decade. 3 decades?
3 decades so far.
We'll just let that. Well, you can be humble about that, but that is fucking incredible, my friend.
Thank you.
That is absolutely incredible. So let's talk about the fear and overcome that.
The fear was just being at Westside. The first few years, you had Chuck, you had George, you had Mike Ruggiero, you had all these lifters that you would go watch. Now you're lifting with them. Now you're buddies with them. So you didn't want to let them down. Mm-hmm. You had to be part of the group, so then you started out lifting a couple and you're like, okay. But the fear was always the scrutiny. Chuck, back in the day, he's awesome. Can't say enough about him. But
relentless though.
Yeah. But once they're your friends, they're giving you their, ideas and philosophies and what you should do, which meant a lot. And, the later years at Westside, there wasn't much of that. I still had George, which he's the best in the world.
Yeah.
So I had great guidance and stuff like that. It's just the gym sort of, I don't want to speak bad about it, but it just wasn't like it.
Well, the original days, it was Westside versus the world, literally. Yeah. So I can only imagine, like the 4 a.m. crew at Old School Gym is something that I put at the highest regard of respect. And I'm grateful to be a part of it.
Sure.
And I'm sure it was the same way for you, where you probably walk in there humbled every time you walk in and walk out, but the gratitude for that. Because once you are a part of something that great, you recognize that one day it's going to end So I got to embrace every moment of it. And we're all fucking crazy in here.
Definitely. Yeah.
And that makes a special bond. I think it's like the Army, you know, or the military. Everybody understands at a base level how great it is to be a part of that. But the only ones that understand what it feels like are the ones that are there. And I'm sure Westside was that way for you.
Sure. Like I said before, it was a religion, you know, and you believed in it so heartily, and you do almost anything, you know, for them, and then, you know, the gym, the people, and sometimes, you know, it hurt in other parts of your life, but I mean, it's better than being in a bar every night.
That it's the bar of choice is the one that you put plates on, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And thinking about, like, I cannot even fathom your experience and the stories that you have, but thinking about that bond and that unity with that collective group of people that are from different backgrounds, different beliefs, you know, race, everything in there is different. But nobody gives a shit about that when you walk through the door. It is about being better.
Yeah.
It's about developing yourself with the iron and being one with that.
Yeah. And, you know, it's like, say you walk into the gym when you're a power lifter, you're beating yourself. You're not going in there for looks or for likes. You know, and that's what a lot of it is now, you know, social media. You know, we're here. But I'm saying, you know, back then, the only way anybody knew about you was showing up at a meet or Powerlifting USA.
Yep.
You know, we didn't have the internet. We didn't video our lifts. You know.
And that's funny because, you know, I do that now. And so I never did, and now I do. And I do it for a good reason, and it's not to showcase me as much as try to help other people.
Exactly.
But it is, like, I'm old school by nature, so it is. When I first started doing it, it was really weird for me because it wasn't something that I wanted to do. Knowing I had the intent behind of it for helping other people is the reason why. When I did it at Westside, every once in a while, I was checking my form.
Exactly.
I wanted to make sure that I understood what I was doing wrong because I have to visualize.
Yeah, you can be told, but
it's hard to understand it if you can't see it. But when I could apply the visual with the outside, you know, voice telling me what I'm doing, then it was like a light bulb, and it made a huge difference for me.
Yeah, because I remember George hung a camera up above us, and we would watch the weight come down and how it descent. It showed a whole different. You know,
and it's something that seeing that angle, it's probably really weird because you're
very weird.
You're watching an elevated version of what you see when you're benching. If you keep your eyes open long enough, I mean, there's times
sometimes you close, or you can even black out.
I've had that happen once or twice, maybe, where I got up and I couldn't quite see like anything, and
I passed out once. And didn't know what the hell happened.
Yeah. So. I'm sure that was quite the experience. So let's talk about your career, man. I mean, don't shrug your fucking shoulders at me, Drex. You're too damn good to be that humble. So
I didn't do much.
You're a student of the game. I know that, and we have never talked about this, but you still lift off for Hoff, right?
Yeah.
Which he has the
highest total ever. Yeah.
Broke his own record 3 or 4 times.
Yeah. He's just a freak of nature. That's all you can say. And everybody will say the same thing. The guy can put on a shirt once a year and then go to a meet and, you know, bench 1,000 plus. And
he's an athlete too.
Yeah,
I've seen him do box jumps and shit before. I was blown away.
Explosive.
Yeah.
Explosive. His mental, you know, state when he comes in, you know, he's locked in and there's nobody that can get inside his head. Yeah. He don't get rattled. I mean,
don't get in his way when he gets out from under the bar, though.
Yeah. He's a man on a mission.
Yeah.
Great guy. And, you know, he can teach anybody. I mean, he's a really good, he can break you down, tell you what you need to do. And, you know, a lot of people might be scared of him, but he's just a great all around guy.
Westside in itself is something that I was fearful of. Tony Ramos was calling me a pussy for a year before I finally came there. And I had so much respect for the place that I had to make sure, for me, I was scared for that time. Yeah. I'm not going to BS about that. But I had so much respect for the gym that I was not going to walk in there and half-ass anything.
Sure.
And I remember walking in the first probably month or so, I didn't lift with the group. I like kind of did my thing in the corner. And Tony came over to me one day. He's like, bro, you got to get the fuck out of here and lift with us. Basically, you know, like, what are you doing? You're here with the best lifters in the world and you're sitting over there doing your dumb shit. Like, come join us. And George took me under his wing. You did as well. You're one of the first people that kind of opened up to me. Everybody in there, although extremely scary on the surface to most people, they just want you to do better.
Oh, yeah.
They're going to cuss you out, motherfucker. You maybe kick your ass every once in a while, but they just want you to do better. And sometimes the ones that are helping are the ones that actually want it more than you do.
Well, yeah. And the thing is we would rather break you down than somebody on the outside. Mm-hmm. You know, because if you can take it from us, you can take it from anybody.
You can take any type of ass chewing outside that. Yeah.
Exactly. But
the knowledge that George Halbert had, he was such a phenomenal coach because he was not just a meathead that couldn't explain something. Oh. He was so methodical in his approach and his explanation. My bench went from 355 to 425 in 6 months or so at Westside. It was like incredible for me.
Yeah, he people don't understand. I mean, they hear the rumors and everything, but you would come in one week and be like, all right, we're doing this. And we're just sitting there like, what the hell? We're going to add another band. Mm-hmm. But, you got stronger. And
there's no doubt that I have taken a lot of what George taught me and helped out some of the guys here. The one thing that was just transformational for me wasn't the max lifting. It was the speed. Insane bar speed. That man could move a bar so fast.
The first time I saw George in person was down at Circleville Barbell. They had a meet every year down there. And there was a guy, and they kept talking about him and said he's going to break the world record. He's going to break. And I watched him, and he went over and, raw press 405. And it was like an empty bar. I'd never seen somebody so explosive with that amount of weight. And he did end up breaking the world record that day.
Was that the 622?
622, something
at
like 198 or something. Yeah. And then I got to see him at the Arnold, bench. And then it wasn't a couple months later, a man down in Willersburg, Ohio, had George come down with Tina Reinhardt to do like a seminar. And he watched us bench, and then he was coming down once a month to critique us. And then he asked me one day, he said, listen, I'm not coming down here no more. He said, you want to come to Westside? And I was like, you sure? He said, yeah, you're ready. I said, well, Louis asked me at Circleville, and he said, oh, yeah, you're ready. So that's how that all began.
Talk about that. What was that like? I mean, early 2000s, that's at the peak of Westside probably.
Yeah.
Right? Was that when they kind of had that new group coming in from the original one?
Yeah. Like I said, Ruggiero was there. John Stafford.
Yeah.
Trying to think. Fuzner just left, I think, or whatever that horror deal was. Trying to think,
because there's that original group. Is that when? So would Matt Winning been in your group?
Matt come after? Yeah.
Okay.
Matt was around 05.
And that's when Tony was
already there.
Was he there? Okay.
Yeah, Tony. So when I come in, it was me and George lifting together, and then lifted with John Stafford a little bit, Paul Keys, Tony, and that all took off, and then I would go to Westside, and then Ruggiero left, and then I would do my training at Westside at 6:30 in the morning, and then about 8:30 I'd leave, and then we would meet at 9 and go over to Elite Fitness, and it was me, Dave Tate, Chuck, Ruggiero, and Windler, and we would lift there, and that was when Elite was about, I don't know, it wasn't much bigger than this, and then I'd do a workout there.
Yeah.
But, Louis got wind of that, didn't like it too much, so he told me to get my ass back and stay at Westside.
Louis' ability to connect the dots on what had already been done My favorite quote, and I quote it often, I didn't invent toilet paper, but I'm smart enough to use it.
Yeah.
You know, he caught a lot of slack from people that, well, you didn't invent that. Nothing that is used today is new. It's a collection of different things that have already been created, put together in someone else's frame, and then pushed out. And like taking the bands, he was such a student of the game and willing to try anything and try everything. I think the biggest misconception I had whenever I first started following the programming was the amount of volume after your max lift or your speed work. The volume was insane. I mean, 80% of the time was really the volume.
Sure.
20% was the max effort lift or the speed work. I was blown away at the amount of volume that was actually done.
You have to do all that volume at the beginning to build. Now, I'm older now, and people know I hardly do any accessories. You know, I'll do blood work, you know, but I usually do
just to get ready.
Yeah. I don't agree with what I do because now I'm beat up, tore up, but you have to do that in the beginning.
I think it's not only a foundational component. If you're not going to lift heavy if you don't have muscle base to start with. You got to have a foundation of just muscle development before you really get all the strength component there. A lot of the strength is more about leverage, technique, and things of that nature, where it's like jiu-jitsu. It's not about how strong you are. It's about how you can leverage your technique in different situations. I've seen some people that would walk in not looking very strong and humble the fuck out of me in a split second. And that's what's so great about it. Big ain't strong, strong is strong. I know Tony always said that.
He's right.
And I watched some of his lifts and some of the other guys in there that weren't very big. And it's incredible to see what certain people were able to do with given circumstance. Jeremy Smith, did you know Jeremy?
I know Jeremy.
So he came on the show like last year.
Okay.
His stories, I mean, what he's been able to do, talk about a lack of leverage because of his size.
Sure.
Holy shit, man. I mean, he's done some crazy things.
Yeah, and he's an athlete too. You know?
Yes. Like a extreme athlete.
Exactly.
Yeah. He's just smaller, but he is a fucking unit.
Yeah.
And I had such an appreciation for his story and what he's done. And that shows you the unique, like, variety of outliers at Westside. It's some of the best lifting years that I've ever had, you know, in the 4 or 5 years that I was there, whatever it was. But, and that Sunday morning crew, a lot of the guys still competed. You know, most of them were past probably their better years, but that fire was still there, and everybody's working to get better. And I have such an appreciation for, you know, the short amount of time that I got to spend there.
It's great. You know, and you were always meet ready. At least our group, you know, was. It wasn't like, okay, well, we're planning a meet in 6 months. It was
4 weeks, probably.
There was one year I did 13 different meets because I was trying to reach 700 and it was all in my head, you know. And then finally, George told me when we went to a meet up in Fremont, Ohio, and he said, just put some earplugs in. I said, well, you call my numbers. And I ended up benching 715 that day because it was all in my head. So
it's amazing how, I don't know if you have this or not, but seeing an extra plate go on. You can have 400 on the bar. I'm not going to think twice because I can only see 3 plates. You put 405 on there, I know it's going to get heavy.
Yes,
yeah, that's where it starts getting heavy, you know, for me at Raw. I think I did a 3 second or 5 second pause with 405 here in the last couple of years.
It's awesome.
But I know when that fourth plate goes on there, for me psychologically, it was something I had to overcome. If you had to pick, I heard this the other day, if you had to pick, you know, between physical or mental, if you had one that you were superior at, you know, what would it be? And the statement, the question was like, oh shit, that's really good. And then the one guy answered physical, because I can physically become strong and that will adapt to mental strength. But I've never seen a gardener in a war problem solve his way out of getting killed. Like mentally, you have to get that. I think that mental component is that last 10 or 20% sometimes, where it doesn't matter what you're physically capable of, the mind has to take it to that next level, like you just said.
Yeah, definitely. Well, now I don't have the physical.
Yeah, that's true.
A lot of it's mental. So I don't really get scared about lifts, as long as I have the right people around me.
Yeah.
A couple years ago, we did a meet up at Mike Wolf's, And yeah, Mike was still here with us. And my buddy handed it out to me. I thought it was awesome, felt great. And it was 830 pounds. And it slipped out of my hands. It spun out of my hands. And it tore some muscle off the ribs. And when something like that has happened in my life, there's only been 2 or 3 instances. I just basically go through I don't know what you would call it. It just goes through my body, and I'm like, okay, is anything torn? Is anything, can I breathe? Am I going to?
Well, the first thing, did I puncture a lung?
Well, yeah.
Did a rib break off and puncture a lung? Am I going to suffocate to death here in a minute?
Sure.
And once you know that's good, then it's like, okay, the rest I can deal with.
And I sit there, and my buddy Bone that lifts at my gym down home, you just got to know him. He's about 160 pounds, and he's like, get up, pussy. And I stood up, and everything was fine. But yeah, but the next 2 weeks later, I put on a shirt and was lifting again. So long as nothing's broken, or
I know, like for me, I think mine was just fear. Like it hurt like hell, and I couldn't hardly breathe right, and I cracked some ribs. But original thought was, well, what just happened? Because I got Tony Ramos smacking me in the mouth. My arms are up over my head, and I have people, like 10 people staring at me. Yeah. What the fuck happened? But then after like everything settles, it's just a little setback. Exactly. Physically.
Sure.
It hurts. Mentally, though, it can be detrimental. And if you're not willing to embrace it for what it is and know I got the best people in the world around me, that environment's huge for overcoming that fear. Whether you do it in silence or you do it outspoken, the environment is really the ultimate, ability to overcome it to me.
Yeah, because I remember my first injury at Westside. We were doing floor press dumbbells for some odd reason. And I had the 120s, and I was on my 6th rep. We were doing 10s, and I hear a rip. Well, Louis sitting behind me on that bench, and he just starts laughing. I was like, oh, shit. And I was like, is it bad? And he's like, lift up your shirt. And he's like, no, it's fine. It's just a fascia. You'll be fine. So me hearing him say that, I was like, well, I'm going to be fine. Mm-hmm. I would rather hear his words than a doctor.
Yeah. Well, he put it in the reality for you. Like the reality was what he said because you knew he'd been there, done that.
Sure.
A doctor doesn't understand anything outside of what a textbook will say most of the time. So they're going to give you worst case scenario, and it becomes that because that's what you believe in.
And you dwell. Mm-hmm. But yeah, there's been a couple instances. Like I remember I tore my bicep off handing out to a buddy, and I thought it was my knee at first, and the 3 guys heard it.
Did you have your elbow bent or something?
No, I tried to curl it back up. He had missed it, and it just
gotcha. Yeah.
And Arnold Coleman was there. He's like, "Let me see it," and he's like, "Oh," he said, "It's just a fascia. You'll be all right." So I went out to Elite afterwards, and there was a guy digging around. He said, "Oh, it's okay." Well, the next day I went and seen a surgeon. Mm-hmm. He's like, "Yeah, you tore it off." He said, "It's bad." Arnold calls me an hour later and he says, "So when's surgery?" And I was like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" Sorry. I said, "What are you talking about?" No. He said, "I knew right then it was tore off." He said, "But you was in shock." He said, "And I wasn't going to put you in." That's
smart, dude. And that's such like a regulated surrounding to have where they emotionally regulated you to not go into shock.
Yeah.
Because the pain is probably next level excruciating.
I just knew. Yeah. My arm's flopping around.
Zach Matheny, I don't know if you know him or not. He started his own place in Columbus, but he tore bicep deadlifting in here, and he was 650 pound deadlifter, 181, I think. Mm-hmm. So he's a really good deadlifter. Maybe 198, but just extraordinary pull. And he did it in here, and it was bad. Like it happened, and then he had historically had like blood sugar, issues where his blood sugar dropped, and that's what happened. Like he was laying on the floor sweating, and like had to get ice for him, and he was a mess. He had to get surgery like that day. And the same thing, like nobody knew really how to react to the uncertainty of that. Sure. But having people around you that lower the emotional state definitely help.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I remember I called Lou because I was going to ask him. He said, "Don't get it fixed." And I was like, "Why?" He's like, "You're going to tear it off again." He said, "The bicep's a useless muscle," and he was right. I tore it off again and then tore my other one off. So, but if you ever looked at Lou's arms were flat. He had no biceps on either arm. So.
And, I'm assuming most of that was either from spotting where you're being forced to pull up that amount of weight, because that's all it is your elbow. Like if your arms are straight in a deadlift, you're fine. But once you curl your elbow any, it's going to rip. Yeah. And that's especially at the weight that you guys, bench and pull. I know for me, I go over under, and I pull conventional most of the time now because of my knee being so screwed up. But like I pull this way, and it's also created imbalances in my back, and it also created this huge issue in my pec. So I tore my pec a couple of years ago. I was 3 weeks out from a meet. It was going to be in Dayton. I forget the name of the gym. Whole crew went to do a meet, and they were actually doing a bodybuilding show the day before and then a meet the day after. So it was like this, yeah.
Wow.
So this weekend, like bodybuilding show, powerlifting meet, which is a credible feat in itself. And I tore like a few weeks before, so I was just a cheerleader. But I thought when I did it, I was benching 405 through a black to a 2 board, I think.
Okay.
And I missed it the first time because my technique was poor. I think my CNS was actually crashed, and I went and tried it again. The time under tension, the first time I tried it, I've been able to recover out of some pretty bad lifts before and get through it. And I tried on that first one, and I was probably pushing 6 or 7 seconds before, like all maxed out, before I gave up. And the guy spotting me did what they should have done, because I've overcame that before, but I was crashed. Mentally, I was shot. I didn't realize it until it was too late. And it was probably, I went through a pretty lengthy process. It just ripped partial off. So aesthetically, you can barely tell. I just don't have anything left on this upper pec. Gotcha. And so like it was awkward because it's just, there's nothing there. It wasn't like I blew it out and put it in my armpit. It's just nothing there. So obviously I was thankful for that, because I didn't have to go through the hell of potentially getting surgery, not getting surgery, or whatever it looks like. It took me probably about 6 months after that I did a meet. I had not touched hardly heavy. I don't think I did 315, but maybe a few times. And right before meet, I did 350 because that was my opener. And Tony and Jeremy Smith both came, and I ended up, I did 410 in that meet. So it turned out good, but that like could have been catastrophic.
Sure.
And I'm just glad it wasn't. But it led to so many other imbalances. So it just exposed, when that went, it exposed everything else. So winged out scapulae on this side. I had spine fractures, 10 years ago or so. So that all got exposed, plus a shot knee. So everything was like this roadmap of cluster, like that I've been through. And that pec going, that was the last like thing that linked it all together. And that pec, when it was overloaded, it just gave out. And I finally realized I gotta figure this imbalance thing out. Have you? You've had so many things, I'm sure. Have you had any like paradigm shattering moments with imbalances or anything that you're like?
Yeah, I'm dealing with that now. I've been dealing with it for a few years. I can't bench probably 300 pounds raw. I know I can't, but you can put a shirt on me and it'll pull my shoulder in, and I'm Superman. Yeah, it's like Superman's cape.
I remember you telling me that at Westside too, because you'd warm up to like 225, maybe 275, and then you would just kind of go for it. I'm like, and you said that wasn't easy for you to do, that 275, 300, and then you hop under the bar at 600, like right after that, or not very long.
Yeah, I never thought of that's what we did for years. I mean, what sucked was there for 5 or 6 years. I'd only lift on Sundays because of my work schedule. So I'd come up, do a main lift, do some accessories, and that would be all I'd do. And now that's why I'm just tore apart. Yeah. But me and Jason Goker had a talk a few months ago, and he's went through a lot of the same stuff. Yeah. It's you can put the weight on there and it feels light, but your body just won't do it. It's nerve damage, and it sucks.
Well, nerve damage, but probably like mental, like your brain not letting you physically do it because of what's happened before.
Sure. So I just feel like I'm benching with one arm. This is basically a guide. It's people even say, they say when they hand out to me, they're like, they can tell. And I need surgery, the rotator and the labrum and all that shit, but I've already had it done on the right side. And I honestly don't want to go through that again.
Wearing the shirt takes all that away.
Yeah, it keeps me closed.
Talk about that dynamic where bench pressing 300 is hard raw, and it probably hurts like hell.
Yeah.
But then you can go do 600 probably with zero pain.
Yeah.
And it just, the compression of the shirt takes away the injuries, right?
It makes you feel, I don't know. I always have to hold heavy weight. It's just something, it's mental. I know but the more I hold it, the easier every week. And that's what was fun when we lifted on Sundays. George was going to put, I was going to lift 700 or better every week, whether or not it was weight with bands or
the overall load was over 700.
It's awesome. And, so 700 was easy. It was light in my hands. We had a little Christmas thing at our gym a few years ago, and I did 915 off a 2-board. I thought it was great. It was something, but for me, it was a lot. For people out there, they've done way more. You always try to compare yourself to good people, but
But Drex is 900 pounds for lifting once a week. I mean, don't sell yourself short.
Yeah, but my days, are numbered. I know I'm not going to be the person I was 20 years ago. It sucks.
But you've transitioned or always been like a mentor, coaching. Like you help me a ton, and I'm assuming help a lot of other people still.
I try to, yeah.
You're just an iron addict, because I know you still lift off for Dave Hoff, and I see videos of you whenever I see something with Dave. Not very often, but you're always the one there.
Yeah,
you're always the one lifting out for him. That is art in itself.
Well, I get a lot out of it. Like we have people at our gym, and it's awesome. It's just like watching your kid do something spectacular. When you see them do something, that's better than what you can do. I get more out of it.
Yeah.
And they get pissed at me. Like sometimes I've done something in the gym, and I'll be like, "Oh, that was shit." And they're like, "What are you talking about?" I mean, I'm my worst critic. So, and it's easier that way. But there's nothing like we have like Bone. He's done 10 times body weight in 2 different weight classes, and he's only 27.
Wow.
Yeah, and he's very humble. And
that's incredible.
We have somebody new come to the gym, like just follow him. So I get a lot out of, helping people as much as I can, but a lot of people don't want to hear the old guys. They would rather listen to somebody that, is on the internet. And
the thing that I still cannot understand is having someone that has done something that you aspire to do and not listening to them. So like, if I want to accomplish something and I know someone that's already accomplished it that can help me out, the worst and most ignorant thing I could do is not listen to that person. And just like what you're saying with some of the younger guys, the flashy, cute shit on the internet's not what actually works. It's the daily, consistent hustle over time. If you're talking weight training, the adaptability from the weight training is actually not in the weight room. It's after you're out of there. What's your lifestyle look like to accommodate that? The recovery is the reason that you grow. The training isn't. Your training ability is only as good as your recovery. And we've all done it. I am a hypocrite when I say this because I know better, but I still don't do it. But the better your ability to adapt and recover from the training, the better your training volume, the higher it's going to be. Capacity's higher, the weight's higher, it's all there. But there is that emotional side that logic cannot measure grit.
You're right.
And when everybody's going to have a setback, what do you do when you get punched in the mouth? Because we've all had injuries. It's taken a lot of people out of the sport and out of the game altogether. And that's the demise, I think, of people. It's really not the adversity; it's the overcoming the adversity and how you deal with it.
And back in the day, if I had a real problem, I'd ask George,
and you'd listen,
or I would ask, my spotters this and don't sugarcoat it. Tell me the truth.
Yeah,
because that's what I need.
I don't read between the lines. I read the line. I say that often. If it's not clear, I need it to be clear, because I don't want to interpret something you're saying. I want it to be black and white. Can I say yes or no? Is it measurable? Like, is it very defined on what the acknowledgement of that is? Because if there's discretionary, feedback that you can't decipher clearly, it's not going to help you out.
Yeah. But a lot of people can't accept, the bad.
Oh, I know. And that's the big
I've seen
problem.
it happen.
Yeah.
Good lifters. And, I'm not going to point fingers, but you want it for them more than they want it. Mm-hmm. And they
because what their potential is.
They have the ability.
Yeah.
They have the ability. But, you might say some words that upset them, and, they go a different path, and it sucks. Sometimes you lose friends that way. And
Well, you're saying it not out of a place of hatred. You're saying it out of a place of, like, you love them enough to tell them that you suck at this. Exactly. You need to get stronger here. Like, pick your skirt up, put your purse around your arm, and walk down the street and get over it, and then come back and let's roll. Yeah. You're not saying it as like a fuck you. You're saying it as like, let's fucking go.
Yeah, and we're
trying to get better.
Yeah, I try to tell people all the time, if I'm not fucking with you, then I don't like you.
Yeah, because you're giving them attention and you're giving them time.
Yeah.
And that's an asset that is irreplaceable, is time. And for someone to get so wrapped up in what you said and the feeling of it, for me, like, I understood that from an early age, that whether it's good intention or bad intention, criticism is valuable.
Yes.
It's either going to teach you something that you need to do or teach you something that you never want to do. But either way, you're going to learn something.
And that's, I think, a problem with a lot of the kids today. They've been told this, been handed this. And they can't, they just explode,
It's really...
And you're the dick.
Yeah. And it's really unique because a lot of the kids that react that way, my opinion is it's the parenting that they had growing up. So, like, the generation today is seemingly softer than what we were or are, or we understand. But what did the parents not do? Were they not disciplined as kids? When technology advanced so fast in the last 15 years, were they not able to say no, not disciplined? Yeah. And so it's a really unique turning point, because when I was 16, I had a cell phone, but it was an old flip phone, like an old Verizon or a Nextel, the walkie-talkie. And like the phone thing exploded as I became an 18-year-old to now. But all that shit was new for me too. So like all the kids, or people my age at 35 that had kids, the ones that never grew up and were able to regulate that are having kids that they can't regulate and control too.
Yeah, because I was 29 when I got a phone. My father had passed away, and I ended up with his phone. And I was like, but now that's all you see. My girlfriend's a boy. He lives on it, and it is what he can't take direction. Everything you say, but now my son, he does pretty well. I don't know. He's my best friend, So when we discuss everything and talk about stuff, and it's different. My daughter's older, I don't know shit, so you just got to take the good with the bad. But yeah, it would be nice if things could go back, but it's just the way everything's evolved. And
yeah, I look at life, and with AI now, I'm on my phone all the time.
Sure.
I operate my life through my phone. My businesses, I don't talk on the phone nearly as much now, and I actually don't like talking on the phone.
Exactly.
I can send a voice memo out. It can encapsulate a 30-minute conversation in 3 sentences, and there's my point. So I look at it though like it's an accelerator, not a shortcut. I think there's a big discrepancy with people thinking that this is going to be a shortcut to get this done better or faster. There are no shortcuts. You still have to put the work in. You still have to do the thing. Yes. And there are accelerators though. I think training is the same way. There are no shortcuts. You still have to put the work in. You still have to do the right things. But there are accelerators with the recovery, with the training protocol, with the adaptability. There's so many things that can accelerate progress, but the work is still the work.
Yeah, you have to do the work. And yeah, people, like the older people, or, even people in their, mid 30s and stuff, they've done a lot. So just listen to them, they've found different things that work and don't work. The thing with Westside, which is nice, is it's proven, and there are a lot of naysayers and stuff. And what I try to tell people as well is it's easy to make a person strong, but it's hard to make a strong person stronger. And that's what,
What happens when you hit 90% of your true ceiling?
Sure.
Because that last 10%, I mean, Dave talked about it, 2 years of training for 5 pounds or whatever it was. And in that documentary, he's talking about all the people doubting him and the judgment and all the criticism. And he's like, one time, sure, you could call it lucky. Second time, there is no luck there. Like he was so hell bound on proving him all wrong for 5 pounds.
And he did. And the thing is we had a discussion early on is, he broke the record in a certain federation. And then people were trying to say, he could only do it. So he said, what we're going to do is we're going to go to every federation.
And break them all.
And see who shows up. Well, now nobody, and he's a big supporter of the WPO, WP, whatever it is. Nobody shows up. They don't, back in the day, you would go to the Arnold.
Yeah.
The best lifters.
It was a Super Bowl.
It was amazing. It was so fun for the fans. And now, you'll hear a big lift here and a big lift here. Well, nobody wants to compete. He did, what he said he would do.
How many people were even remotely close to that mark? Is there anyone within 50 pounds, 100 pounds?
No, not 100 pounds.
Not 100 pounds.
No.
What is it? 3,014?
I think he did 30. Was it 31.04 or something at one meet? I'm pretty sure. Yeah, he's totaled over 3,000 in 4 or 5 meets. I hate to, not say the correct answer. But there's nobody close.
Jeez. And he was 16 when he started going to Westside? He was in high school, I think,
he
right?
He was young, young.
Just a free,
It was right after I got there. Because his birthday was Christmas. I think he's 36.
Is that all the older he is?
Yeah.
Really? Man, he's such a...
Yeah.
It's incredible to think that's all the older he is. And he's smart, too.
Very smart.
Yeah.
And he's had the, highest total for 10 years at least. So he doesn't have anything else he needs to prove. But,
and I think that he probably felt that chip on his shoulder to prove himself. But now he's probably just worried about improving himself. So really, when you're able to, you got to prove yourself, right? Also, there's a stage of life where you set out to do this thing. If you talk about it, if you're vocal about it, and you haven't done it yet, well, you don't deserve it if you haven't done it, but you have to prove that you're capable of it. But then you do it multiple times. But then I have proven that I can do this, so I'm not proving anything to anyone because I've already proved to myself.
Exactly.
I'm going to continue to improve, though, and I'm just going to get better and better and better. There's always someone that's going to come take the next guy off that mountaintop. But as long as, you prove yourself to what you desire to and then keep improving, that's what makes the journey of life itself is what is the win there.
Yeah, and he's done it all. So it's amazing. He's just a genetic. He is the freak.
Well, there's so many things that have to fall in place just at the right time.
Sure.
Finding the Westside Barbell, being genetically, strong anyways. Louis was the same way.
Sure.
He was a freak as far as strength goes from an early age, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I remember him, he came in one day when I was in there and he was rack pulling
rack pulls
600 or 700 pounds. And it's like, what the hell? Just, he didn't warm up.
Over 60 years old.
It was insane. And he wasn't even lifting then. That's when he was at his descend. And it was like, my God, all this grip strength was next level. But just in general, just to walk in and do something like that.
And you have to look up to people like that, because you see a lot of other 67 years old, walkers,
Yeah, he broke his back, 3 times, 2 times, and then what's he do? He doesn't dwell on it. He invents the reverse hyper, which that's where in itself is insane.
Yeah, a lot of chiropractors use it now. And You see them in, almost every gym.
Yeah. They were a staple for me for a short period of time after spine fractures and different stuff in my back that I was twisted up, because it really eliminated that pressure on your spine. That
Opens you up.
it does. And like, I remember that feeling where my spine was like, I felt like it was stretching apart,
Sure.
but it was so decompressed and so tight because of my body not allowing me to move that mental part where my body doesn't want me to move because it hurts.
Yeah, and
it's
everybody thinks
survival.
you have to go heavy on it. You don't even have to go heavy.
No. And even doing like single legs for higher volume was a very good thing for me to get like the imbalances in check and whatnot. So, it's incredible, the coachability part, like we were talking about the younger generation, and self-awareness and coachability are two, I think, very overlooked skills for people. If you are not coachable and you don't have self-awareness, life is going to be very hard for you, and you're going to be humbled in the most distraught way at some point, because it is not something that you don't overcome being arrogant or having all the ego.
Well, it's like you say, when you're good, other people will talk about you.
Yeah.
You don't need to talk about yourself.
No. And that's what I think, like the difference between confidence and ego. That's been something that was brought up a couple months ago. And I never really thought about it until that moment. But when I speak about something with confidence, it's not because I think I know I can do it. It's because I've already done it and I have a track record that says I can. So to me, confidence is proof that I'm good at this thing or I can do this thing. Ego is speaking out on something you've never actually done but desire to do.
Yeah.
And so like you can confidently say you can bench 700 pounds and you can teach other people to do it because you've done it hundreds of times. I can't. So if I said I could help someone bench 700, I'd be completely full of shit and I'd be egotistical because I've never done it. And so like there's a fine line though, just having the resume to say, yeah, I can do this. And that's when people should listen and be coachable.
Sure. But I mean, I like helping people at all different levels, just hitting goals, making gains. But you'll have a bad seed here and there, and just like, then I'm just not going to talk to you.
It always works itself out.
Yeah, it does.
The ones that think they're better than they are, in all reality, I think everybody has it where we're not as good as we think we are, or we're not as bad as we think we are. And once we figure out what we actually are in life, I think it becomes much easier to navigate through it all. But there's a defining time, I think, both ways. It kind of goes back and forth. And I've seen both. But I think there's three types of people in life. You have that arrogant, outspoken ass that doesn't know he needs a reality
Just
check.
wants to be heard.
Yeah. And then there's one that's over humble, not confident, and undermining their own value. And then the third one is the one that figured it out. They were one or two and figured out the reality. So that's how I always kind of look at it. But what's your most memorable story from Westside you think of, or training session or anything? You have one you can think of?
There's a lot. I mean, I loved when George benched, the 625 for all. Handing out the Nick winners, with the raw, and then he tore his pec. It was bad. There's just so many.
There's so many, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I still get to hand out the Hoff. Handing out the biggest bench that ever come through Westside. That's a big thing.
I mean, you're handing out a bench press to the strongest human that's ever really
all
competed.
all around. Yeah. And I mean, I enjoy it. I mean, I'm glad he lets me do it. So, still,
no, I mean that's an honor to be able to do that, man.
Yeah, I mean, and a lot of people don't know it. And I know the strongest guy in the world, and I can talk to him as a friend, and it's great. And I've got to meet a lot of good people that come through Westside, and outside of Westside as well. A lot of them are gone now. What really sucks is, and they were close friends, and like you say, it's like going to war, and you have these guys that have your back, And when they're gone, it just sucks. So
Yeah. Louis said, legends never die. And he always talked about the day he was born, and then, he never dies because of that. And it was always interesting because I heard that and I thought, man, that's really a unique perspective. And he's right.
that's correct.
I heard a quote, which was one of the kickstarts for me even starting this podcast in the beginning, but my grandpa's 84 years old, helped out people his whole entire life, and has an incredible story of, he left the factory at like 18 because he maxed out it would have taken 10 years for someone to retire or die before he could have advanced anymore. And then he put a 2 weeks notice in at that moment because he wasn't going to be stagnant because of that. Went out on his own, self-employed, 35 plus years, and like just a crazy story, and always gave back and helped out others. And I heard a song, and it was a quote. It said, you die twice. The first time is when you're buried in the ground. The second time is the last time somebody says your name. I heard that quote and instantly tied it with the podcast together. I got to interview my grandpa. And so he was the first interview I had ever done.
Awesome.
And it was actually episode 100 that was released that I did it. I saved that for episode 100. But I think about that now, and like today, getting your story out there, talking about it, like that's going to live forever. And so thinking about the lost stories that people have kind of sparked the passion even more for this. Sure. Just hearing perspective and the journey through life from so many different areas, it's been really rewarding for me and very, very unique, because there's some epic stories that I've heard and learned. And sometimes, talking to certain people, they would never get it out any other way, except for me being a persistent pain in people's ass and getting it, captured. And I'm grateful to be able to do it. So,
well, that's the thing. The older you get, you're looking for guidance. And your grandfather and people. That's how I was. My grandfather was basically my dad.
Mm-hmm. Same.
And they're gone. Mm-hmm. And now you're sort of like lost. You need somebody to, ask questions.
Yeah.
You got to be the old guy.
Yeah. And I think it's natural selection, kind of, the circle of life. It's inevitable that we're all going to die. We don't all live, but I always reference a skyscraper, like this building, and you're climbing up the side of this building through life. Like that's your journey of life, and you're climbing up this building. You're going up this ladder, and you get to a point where you see the ledge, but the ladder doesn't go up high enough. It stops. You need a hand down to help get up. And so you get to that certain point, and there's someone there that can help guide you through that situation. So they're standing on the ledge, and they reach a hand down and help pull you up. So you always need that person up there.
Definitely.
But while you're climbing and going through life, I always say have a hand up and have a hand down. Someone else is going to need that same hand down that you did at some point. So always, pulling someone along and being pulled along, I think it's like natural for life. Yeah. So getting the help and then giving the help, I think it's just as important to do both.
Definitely.
But dude, I appreciate you coming on here today. It's been a blast.
Likewise.
I love hearing the stories. I mean, I know you pretty well. Heard some epic stories off camera, any closing thoughts? Anything you want to wrap it up with?
No, not really.
I
enjoy being here. It's hard for me to talk, but especially about times at Westside. They hold dear to my, heart.
Yeah. Well, let's leave on a positive note, because you're getting ready to compete again.
Hopefully next year.
And you're going to do what?
I don't know. Try to bench 7 in my 50s.
And you would have done that 20s, 30s, 40s,
and in my 50s, if possible.
So 4 decades in a row, we're going for 700.
Trying.
That is a absolute feat in itself, my friend. So you're a humble person. I'm not going to be humble for you, though. You're an absolute fucking unit, and I appreciate you. Strong as shit. 700 at 50 plus. Ladies and gentlemen, that is impressive. I'm telling you that. So, Drex, appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you.
I appreciate your time, man. Thanks.
All right, buddy.
All right.
Thanks.
Iron Infrastructure Podcast. We're out of here. This episode is brought to you by Max Effort Muscle. For all your supplement needs, go to maxeffortmuscle.com.